Now when it was the 30th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the young man said to the barber, Thou certainly wilt be the death of me this very day." "O master mine," replied he, "I am he, the silent man hight, by reason of the fewness of my words, to distinguish me from my 6 brothers. For the eldest is called Al-Bakbuk, the prattler, the second Al-Hadar, the babbler, the third Al-Fakik, the gabbler, the fourth, his name is Al-Kuz Al-Aswani, the long-necked googlet, from his eternal chattering, the fifth is Al-Nashar, the tattler and tale-teller, the sixth Jakashik, or many clamors, and the seventh is famous as Al-Samet, the silent man, and this is my noble self." Whilst he redoubled his talk, I thought my gallbladder would have burst, so I said to the servant, "Give him a quarter dinar and dismiss him and let him go from me in the name of God who made him. I won't have my head shaved today." "What words be these, O my lord?" cried he. "By Allah! I will accept no hire of thee till I have served thee and have ministered to thy wants, and I care not if I never take money of thee. If thou know not my quality, I know thine, and I owe thy father, honest man, on whom Allah Almighty have mercy, many a kindness, for he was a liberal soul and a generous. By Allah, he sent for me one day, as it were this blessed day, and I went into him and found a party of his intimates about him. Quoth he to me, 'Let me blood,' so I pulled out my astrolabe and, taking the sun's altitude for him, I ascertained that the ascendant was inauspicious and the hour unfavorable for blooding. I told him of this, and he did according to my bidding and awaited a better opportunity. So I made these lines in honor of him. I went to my patron some blood to let him, but found that the moment was far from good. So I sat and I talked of all strangenesses, and with jests and jokes his goodwill I wooed. They pleased him and cried he, 'O man of wit, thou hast proved thee perfect in merry mood.' Quoth I, 'O thou lord of men, save thou lend me art and wisdom I'm fou in wood. In thee gather grace, boon, bounty, suavity, and I gird in the world with lore, science and gravity.' Thy father was delighted and cried out to the servant, 'Give him 103 gold pieces with a robe of honor.' The man obeyed his orders, and I awaited an auspicious moment, when I blooded him, and he did not balk me, nay he thanked me and I was also thanked and praised by all present. When the bloodletting was over I had no power to keep silence and asked him, 'By Allah, O my lord, what made thee say to the servant, give him 103 dinars?' And he answered, 1 dinar was for the astrological observation, another for thy pleasant conversation, the third for the phlebotomization, and the remaining 100 and the dress were for thy verses in my commendation." "May Allah show small mercy to my father," exclaimed I, "for knowing the like of thee." He laughed and ejaculated, "There is no God but the God and Muhammad is the apostle of God. Glory to him that changeth and is changed not. I took thee for a man of sense, but I see thou babblest and dotest for illness. Allah hath said in the blessed book, Paradise is prepared for the goodly who bridle their anger and forgive men, and so forth, and in any case thou art excused. Yet I cannot conceive the cause of thy hurry and flurry, and thou must know that thy father and thy grandfather did nothing without consulting me, and indeed it hath been said truly enough, let the adviser be prized, and, there is no vice in advice, and it is also said in certain saws, whoso hath no counselor elder than he, will never himself an elder be, and the poet says, whatever needful thing thou undertake, consult th experienced and contraire him not. And indeed thou shalt never find a man better versed in affairs than I, and I am here standing on my feet to serve thee. I am not vexed with thee, why shouldest thou be vexed with me? But whatever happen I will bear patiently with thee in memory of the much kindness thy father showed me." "By Allah," cried I, "O thou with tongue long as the tail of a jackass, thou persistest in pestering me with thy prat and thou becomest more longsome in thy long speeches, when all I want of thee is to shave my head and wend thy way." Then he lathered my head saying, "I perceive thou art vexed with me, but I will not take it ill of thee, for thy wit is weak and thou art but a laddie. It was only yesterday I used to take thee on my shoulder and carry thee to school. O my brother," said I, "for Allah's sake do what I want and go thy gait." And I rent my garments. When he saw me do this, he took the razor and fell to sharpening it and gave not over stropping it until my senses were well nigh leaving me. Then he came up to me and shaved part of my head, then he held his hand and then he said, O my Lord, haste is Satan's gate whilst patience is of Allah the Compassionate. But thou, O my Master, I ken thou knowest not my rank, for verily this hand alighteth upon the heads of kings and emirs and wazirs, and sages and doctors learned in the law, and the poet said of one like me. All crafts are like necklaces strung on a string, but this barber's the union pearl of the band. High over all craftsmen he ranketh, and why? The heads of the kings are under his hand. Then said I, Do leave off talking about what concerneth thee not, indeed thou hast straitened my breast and distracted my mind. Quoth he, Meseems thou art a hasty man, and quoth I, Yes. 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 And he, I rede thee practice restraint of self, for haste is Satan's pelf which bequeatheth only repentance and ban in vain, and he, upon whom be blessings and peace, hath said, The best of works is that wherein deliberation lurks, but I, by Allah, have some doubt about thine affair, and so I should like thee to let me know what it is thou art in such haste to do, for I fear me it is other than good. Then he continued, It wanteth 3 hours yet to prayer time, but I do not wish to be in doubt upon this matter, nay, I must know the moment exactly, for truly, a guess shot in times of doubt, oft brings harm about, especially in the like of me, a superior person whose merits are famous amongst mankind at large, and it doth not befit me to talk at random, as do the common sort of astrologers. So saying, he threw down the razor and taking up the astrolabe, went forth under the sun and stood there a long time, after which he returned and counting on his fingers said to me, There remain still to prayer time 3 full hours and complete, neither more nor yet less, according to the most learned astronomicals and the wisest makers of almanacs. Allah upon thee, cried I, hold thy tongue with me, for thou breakest my liver in pieces. So he took the razor and, after sharpening it as before and shaving other 2 hairs of my head, he again held his hand and said, I am concerned about thy hastiness and indeed thou wouldst do well to let me into the cause of it, 'twere the better for thee, as thou knowest that neither thy father nor thy grandfather ever did a single thing save by my advice. When I saw that there was no escape from him I said to myself, the time for prayer draws near and I wish to go to her before the folk come out of the mosque. If I am delayed much longer, I know not how to come at her. Then said I aloud, Be quick and stint this talk and impertinence, for I have to go to a party at the house of some of my intimates. When he heard me speak of the party, he said, This thy day is a blessed day for me. In very sooth it was but yesterday I invited a company of my friends and I have forgotten to provide anything for them to eat. This very moment I was thinking of it, alas, how I shall be disgraced in their eyes. Be not distressed about this matter, answered I, have I not told thee that I am bidden to an entertainment this day? So everything in my house, eatable and drinkable, shall be thine, if thou wilt only get through thy work and make haste to shave my head. He replied, Allah requite thee with good. Specify to me what is in thy house for my guests that I may be ware of it. Quoth I, 5 dishes of meat and 10 chickens with reddened breasts and a roasted lamb. Set them before me, quoth he, that I may see them. So I told my people to buy, borrow or steal them and bring them in any wise, and had all this set before him. When he saw it he cried, The wine is wanting, and I replied, I have a flagon or 2 of good old grape juice in the house, and he said, Have it brought out. So I sent for it and he exclaimed, Allah bless thee for a generous disposition. But there are still the essences and perfumes. So I bade them set before him a box containing nad, the best of compound perfumes, together with fine laden aloes, ambergris and musk unmixed, the whole worth 50 dinars. Now the time waxed straight and my heart straightened with it, so I said to him, Take it all and finish shaving my head by the life of Muhammad, whom Allah bless and keep. By Allah, said he, I will not take it till I see all that is in it. So I bade the page open the box and the barber laid down the astrolabe, leaving the greater part of my head unpolled, and, sitting on the ground, turned over the scents and incense and aloes wood and essences till I was well nigh distraught. Then he took the razor and coming up to me shaved off some few hairs and repeated these lines. The boy like his father shall surely show, as the tree from its parent root shall grow. Then said he, By Allah, O my son, I know not whether to thank thee or thy father, for my entertainment this day is all due to thy bounty and beneficence, and, although none of my company be worthy of it, yet I have a set of honorable men, to wit Sanchit the bath keeper and Salia the corn chandler, and Seelit the bean seller, and Akrasha the greengrocer, and Humayd the scavenger, and Said the camel man, and Suwaid the porter, and Abu Makarish the bathman, and Kasim the watchman, and Karim the groom. There is not among the whole of them a boor or a bully in his cups, nor a meddler nor a miser of his money, and each and every hath some dance which he danceth and some of his own couplets which he caroleth, and the best of them is that, like thy servant, thy slave here, they know not what much talking is nor what forwardness means. The bath keeper sings to the tom-tom a song which enchants, and he stands up and dances and chants. I am going, O mammy, to fill up my pot. As for the corn chandler he brings more skill to it than any, he dances and sings. O keener, O sweetheart, thou fallest not short. And he leaves no one's vitals sound for laughing at him. But the scavenger sings so that the birds stop to listen to him and dances and sings. News my wife wots is not locked in a box. And he hath privilege, for 'tis a shrewd rogue and a witty, and speaking of his excellence I am wont to say. My life for the scavenger. Right well I love him, like a waving bough he is sweet to my sight. Fate joined us one night, when to him quoth I, the while I grew weak and love gained more might thy love burns my heart. And no wonder, quoth he when the drawer of dung turns a stoker white. And indeed each is perfect in whatso can charm the wit with joy and jollity, adding presently, but hearing is not seeing, and indeed if thou make up thy mind to join us and put off going to thy friends, 'twill be better for us and for thee. The traces of illness are yet upon thee and haply thou art going among folk who be mighty talkers, men who commune together of what concerneth them not, or there may be amongst them some forward fellow who will split thy head, and thou have thy sighs from sickness. This shall be for some other day, answered I, and laughed with heart angered. Finish thy work and go, in Allah Almighty's guard, to thy friends, for they will be expecting thy coming. O my lord, replied he, I seek only to introduce thee to these fellows of infinite mirth, the sons of men of worth, amongst whom there is neither precacity nor dicacity nor loquacity, for never, since I grew to years of discretion, could I endure to consort with one who asketh questions concerning what concerneth him not, nor have I ever frequented any save those who are, like myself, men of few words. In sooth if thou were to company with them or even to see them once, thou wouldst forsake all thy intimates. Allah fulfill thy joyance with them, said I, needs must I come amongst them some day or other. But he said, would it were this very day, for I had set my heart upon thy making one of us, yet if thou must go to thy friends today, I will take these good things, wherewith thou hast honored and favored me, to my guests and leave them to eat and drink and not wait for me, whilst I will return to thee in haste and accompany thee to thy little party, for there is no ceremony between me and my intimates to prevent my leaving them. Fear not, I will soon be back with thee and wend with thee whithersoever thou wendest. There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great. I shouted, go thou to thy friends and make merry with them, and do let me go to mine and be with them this day, for they expect me. But the barber cried, I will not let thee go alone, and I replied, the truth is none can enter where I am going save myself. He rejoined, I suspect that today thou art for an assignation with some woman, else thou hadst taken me with thee, yet am I the right man to take, one who could aid thee to the end thou wishest. But I fear me thou art running after strange women and thou wilt lose thy life, for in this our city of Baghdad one cannot do anything in this line, especially on a day like Friday. Our governor is an angry man and a mighty sharp blade. Shame on thee, thou wicked, bad, old man, cried I, be off. What words are these thou givest me? O cold of wit, cried he, thou sayest to me what is not true and thou hidest thy mind from me, but I know the whole business for certain and I seek only to help thee this day with my best endeavor. I was fearful lest my people or my neighbors should hear the barber's talk, so I kept silence for a long time whilst he finished shaving my head, by which time the hour of prayer was come and the khutbah, or sermon, was about to follow. When he had done, I said to him, "Go to thy friends with their meat and drink, and I will await thy return. Then we will fare together." In this way I hoped to pour oil on troubled waters and to trick the accursed loon, so haply I might get quit of him, but he said, "Thou art cozening me and thou wouldst go alone to thy appointment and cast thyself into jeopardy, whence there will be no escape for thee. Now by Allah! And again by Allah! Do not go till I return, that I may accompany thee and watch the issue of thine affair." "So be it," I replied, "do not be long absent." Then he took all the meat and drink I had given him and the rest of it and went out of my house, but the accursed Karl gave it in charge of a porter to carry to his home but hid himself in one of the alleys. As for me, I rose on the instant, for the muezzins had already called the salam of Friday, the salutation to the apostle, and I dressed in haste and went out alone and, hurrying to the street, took my stand by the house wherein I had seen the young lady. I found the old woman on guard at the door awaiting me, and went up with her to the upper story, the damsel's apartment. Hardly had I reached it when behold, the master of the house returned from prayers and entering the great saloon, closed the door. I looked down from the window and saw this barber, Allah's curse upon him, sitting over against the door and said, "How did this devil find me out?" At this very moment, as Allah had decreed it for rending my veil of secrecy, it so happened that a handmaid of the housemaster committed some offense for which he beat her. She shrieked out and his slave ran in to intercede for her, whereupon the Qazi beat him to boot, and he also roared out. The damned barber fancied that it was I who was being beaten, so he also fell to shouting and tore his garments and scattered dust on his head and kept on shrieking and crying, "Help! Help!" So the people came round about him and he went on yelling, "My master is being murdered in the Qazi's house." Then he ran clamoring to my place with the folk after him, and told my people and servants and slaves, and, before I knew what was doing, up they came tearing their clothes and letting loose their hair and shouting, "Alas, our master!" and this barber leading the rout with his clothes rent and in sorriest plight, and he also shouting like a madman and saying, "Alas for our murdered master!" And they all made an assault upon the house in which I was. The Qazi, hearing the yells and the uproar at his door, said to one of his servants, "See what is the matter," and the man went forth and returned and said, "O my master, at the gate there are more than 10,000 souls, what with men and women, and all crying out, 'Alas for our murdered master,' and they keep pointing to our house." When the Qazi heard this, the matter seemed serious and he waxed wroth, so he rose and opening the door saw a great crowd of people, whereat he was astounded and said, "O folk! What is there to do? O accursed! O dog! O hog!" My servants replied, "'Tis thou who hast killed our master." Quoth he, "O good folk, and what hath your master done to me that I should kill him?" And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Now when it was the 31st night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Qazi said to the servants, 'What hath your master done to me that I should kill him? This is my house and it is open to you all.' Then quoth the barber, 'Thou didst beat him and I heard him cry out,' and quoth the Qazi, 'But what was he doing that I should beat him, and what brought him into my house, and whence came he and whither went he?' 'Be not a wicked, perverse old man,' cried the barber, 'for I know the whole story, and the long and short of it is that thy daughter is in love with him and he loves her, and when thou knewest that he had entered the house, thou boddest thy servants beat him and they did so. By Allah, none shall judge between us and thee but the Caliph, or else do thou bring out our master that his folk may take him, before they go in and save him perforce from thy house, and thou be put to shame.' Then said the Qazi, and his tongue was bridled and his mouth was stopped by confusion before the people, 'And thou say sooth, do thou come in and fetch him out.' Whereupon the barber pushed forward and entered the house. When I saw this I looked about for a means of escape and flight, but saw no hiding place except a great chest in the upper chamber where I was. So I got into it and pulled the lid down upon myself and held my breath. The barber was hardly in the room before he began to look about for me, then turned him right and left and came straight to the place where I was, and stepped up to the chest and, lifting it on his head, made off as fast as he could. At this, my reason forsook me, for I knew that he would not let me be, so I took courage and opening the chest threw myself to the ground. My leg was broken in the fall, and the door being open I saw a great concourse of people looking in. Now I carried in my sleeve much gold and some silver, which I had provided for an ill day like this and the like of such occasion, so I kept scattering it amongst the folk to divert their attention from me and, whilst they were busy scrambling for it, I set off, hopping as fast as I could, through the by-streets of Baghdad, shifting and turning right and left. But whithersoever I went this damned barber would go in after me, crying aloud, they would have bereft me of my master. They would have slain him who was a benefactor to me and my family and my friends. Praised be Allah who made me prevail against them and delivered my Lord from their hands. Then to me, where wilt thou go now? Thou wouldst persist in following thine own evil devices, till thou broughtest thyself to this ill pass, and, had not Allah vouchsafed me to thee, ne'er hadst thou escaped the strait into which thou hast fallen, for they would have cast thee into a calamity whence thou never couldst have won free. But I will not call thee to account for thine ignorance, as thou art so little of wit and inconsequential and addicted to hastiness, said I to him, doth not what thou hast brought upon me suffice thee, but thou must run after me and talk me such talk in the bazaar streets. And I well nigh gave up the ghost for excessive rage against him. Then I took refuge in the shop of a weaver amiddlemost of the market and sought protection of the owner who drove the barber away, and, sitting in the back room, I said to myself, if I return home I shall never be able to get rid of this curse of a barber, who will be with me night and day, and I cannot endure the sight of him even for a breathing space. So I sent out at once for witnesses and made a will, dividing the greater part of my property among my people, and appointed a guardian over them, to whom I committed the charge of great and small, directing him to sell my houses and domains. Then I set out on my travels that I might be free of this pimp, and I came to settle in your town where I have lived some time. When you invited me and I came hither, the first thing I saw was this accursed pander seated in the place of honor. How then can my heart be glad and my stay be pleasant in company with this fellow who brought all this upon me, and who was the cause of the breaking of my leg and of my exile from home and native land? And the youth refused to sit down and went away. When we heard his story, continued the tailor, we were amazed beyond measure and amused and said to the barber, by Allah, is it true what this young man saith of thee? By Allah, replied he, I dealt thus by him of my courtesy and sound sense and generosity. Had it not been for me he had perished and none but I was the cause of his escape. Well it was for him that he suffered in his leg and not in his life. Had I been a man of many words, a meddler, a busybody, I had not acted thus kindly by him, but now I will tell you a tale which befell me, that you may be well assured I am a man sparing of speech in whom is no forwardness and a very different person from those 6 brothers of mine, and this it is.